the last step in the destruction of Gaza and its Palestinian people. It was Rafah that brought South Africa to the court, but it is all Palestinians, as a national, ethnical and racial group, who need the protection from genocide that the court can order.
When South Africa presented its genocide case in January, the death toll in Gaza stood at more than 23,000. The court then ordered Israel to stop genocidal acts but refrained from ordering a ceasefire. 4 months later, South Africa says the court has a last chance to stop what it calls Israel's endgame by ordering its immediate withdrawal from Gaza. This is the fourth time South Africa has asked this court for provisional measures against Israel to stop its relentless attacks, its argument sounding more urgent each time. With Israel pursuing its war aims in Gaza, many are wondering what international justice can do to prevent and stop genocide. South Africa argues the court does have the authority.
The essential point is that the court has the power to act, to ensure that its previous orders and its eventual judgment will not be worthless, and that the Palestinian people will be protected, and that it needs to exercise that power now.
Israel will have its turn at the court on Friday. So far, it has called the accusations of genocide baseless. But with Egypt now supporting South Africa's case, international pressure on Israel in and outside the court is increasing. Steadfast, Al Jazeera, The Hague.
Well, the Asian Football Confederation is backing Palestine's attempt to have Israel suspended from FIFA because of the war in Gaza. A minute's silence was held for victims of the war at the AFC Congress, which is being held ahead of FIFA's Congress in Bangkok on Friday. FIFA members are set to discuss the motion put forward by Palestine's FA that is seeking immediate and appropriate sanctions against Israeli teams. PFA says at least 99 Palestinian footballers have been killed in the war. Russian leader Vladimir Putin is in China, deepening what he calls an unprecedented strategic partnership. Beijing has provided Moscow with an economic lifeline during its invasion of Ukraine. The two leaders discussed the war as well as expanding trade and investment. The pair also called for the depoliticization of the United Nations. Katrina Yu reports from Beijing.
A powerful welcome for a man Chinese President Xi Jinping considers an old friend. Vladimir Putin walked the red carpet as he arrived in Beijing for a 2-day visit to deepen cooperation between China and Russia.
China will always be a good neighbor, good friend of mutual trust with Russia, and continue to consolidate the friendship between the two peoples.
Beijing has been Moscow's most important supporter since it invaded Ukraine and has resisted calls from Western leaders to reduce their trade. 40% of Russia's imports are now from China, including electric vehicles and smartphones shut out of the US market.
China is Russia's leading partner in the international trade. Based upon last year's data, our country became number 4 in the export and import balance of China.
The two leaders signed a joint declaration celebrating 75 years of diplomatic ties and affirming their strategic partnership. 10 deals were also signed on development, cultural exchanges, and the protection of Siberian tigers. Xi Jinping says the China-Russia relationship is a stabilizing force in the face of US hegemony. Putin says both sides are working towards a more multipolar world and criticized what he described as a proliferation of global institutions such as the United Nations and closed alliances in the Asia-Pacific. The Russian president says he's grateful for China's efforts to solve the Ukraine crisis while taking into account the security concerns of both sides. Russia's newly appointed defense minister is also in Beijing and has briefed Xi on Russian forces' progress in the fighting.
From Russia's standpoint, it signals to the rest of the world that Russia is not alone, despite the invasion of Ukraine and despite all the sanctions that have been imposed on Russia.
But there are apparently some limits to this so-called no-limits partnership. Zelensky has stopped short of providing Moscow with direct military support, being careful not to antagonize Washington and Brussels too much. Economic cooperation between China and Russia may be growing, but it remains dwarfed by the volume of Chinese trade with both the US and Europe. Katrina Yu, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
The mayor of Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine says the city is under missile attack as Russian forces make territorial gains close by. President Volodymyr Zelensky visited injured troops in Kharkiv in a bid to boost morale. He says the situation there remains extremely difficult. John Holman reports from Kharkiv.
It's been a tough few days for these soldiers, for Ukraine, and for President Volodymyr Zelensky.
I want to thank you for all you do. Thank you for your bravery.
He's visiting the Kharkiv region in northeast Ukraine after a Russian cross-border offensive took about 200 square kilometers of territory. Ukraine's armed forces say they've now slowed its advance, although they're still fighting in the biggest town in the border area, Bobchansk.
The situation is extremely difficult. The enemy is taking possession on the streets of the town of Bobchansk.
Another Russian push just west has advanced 7 kilometers into Ukraine. But if that push goes a few kilometers more, then Russian artillery will be able to shell the northern outskirts of here, Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city and home to more than 1 million people. It's already being attacked frequently from the air, with Russia using especially guided bombs. They have wings and a GPS system, and released from bombers can then travel more than 100 kilometers to their target. They're hitting the front line too, says Stepan, who's just come off it for a breather and a smoke.
In the Sumy region, we had a situation where more than 100 guided bombs flew into one of the settlements in 3 days. They use them all over the place, wherever they can. They have unlimited reserves.
The fighter jets which can stop the bombers who carry them, along with many of the other weapons promised by Ukraine's allies, have yet to arrive. Although some US arms from a $61 billion US military aid package are now coming in. Meanwhile, this country lacks troops and weaponry. This latest incursion will also mean it's down on morale. John Holman, Al Jazeera, Kharkiv.
So ahead for you on the program. France sends troops to its Pacific territory of New Caledonia after a third night of riots. The murals pay tribute to some of the women murdered in Mexico. Their families tell us the laws are meant to